Chapter 7, Financial IQ 5, Improving Your Financial Information. In January of 1972, I was transferred from Camp, California to an aircraft carrier off the coast of Vietnam. It was my second trip to Vietnam. My first trip visit was in 1966. The Merchant Marine Academy sent students to sea for a year of study. My project was studying military cargo operations in a war zone. More specifically, how to safely load and unload bombs without killing ourselves. My second trip as a war pilot was a very different experience than studying the war as a student. My primary job on board the carrier was as a helicopter gunship pilot. My primary mission was to fly as an escort for the larger troop helicopters. Our squadron was made up of mostly troop transport helicopters, the twin motor CH-46 and CH-53s, also known as Jolly Green Giants. If the zone was hot with enemy fire, the job of the gunship was to protect the troop transport helicopters in the zone. Personally, I was happy to be a gunship pilot. It was a lot better than being a troop transport pilot. The transport pilots had to be extremely brave. They flew large helicopters into a hot zone, just sitting there as troops got on or off. Top secret job. My secondary job was an assistant to the squadron's top secret information officer. It was an extremely interesting job. For hours on end, we would sit, listen, observe, gather, and process top secret information. At regular intervals during the day and the night, we gave briefings to the commanding officer and his team. Our job was to take raw data from the war and turn into relevant information, life or death information. As an information officer, I gained a tremendous respect for information prior to Vietnam. I never thought about this subject. In school, I thought the study of information was a joke. To me, information was just data, mindless facts and figures, dates and times to be memorized in order to pass tests. In Vietnam, information was more important. It could mean life or death for my fellow pilots. Today, I believe that I am a better entrepreneur and investor because of my information as information officer. Today, I know that information can mean life or death in war and difference between rich or poor in business. Information more important than life. In the process of preparing to go to Vietnam, we were trained to process infinite bits of information and be able to make a split-second decisions under intense pressure. If we did a good job processing the information, we lived. If we didn't, we risked death. Once I realized that my life and the lives of others were dependent upon the quality of information I received. It became more important than even my own life. In a previous book, I wrote about the first day I came under fire in Vietnam. I described the fear as well as the realization that the guy firing at me wanted to go home as much as I did. In the book, I related my crew chief's words of wisdom, reminding me that in war there was no second place, no silver medal. It was gold or nothing. Watching the real bullets screaming up at us, I realized school days were officially over. As we flew towards our death, years of training information were being processed into one decision, one action. The good news is that my crew and I returned home that night. Sadly, the Vietnamese on the ground didn't. There was no second place. The most important asset. A friend of mine who is a Bible scholar often says, without knowledge my people will perish. Today many people are perishing because they are without knowledge about money. We live in the information age, even in very remote areas of the world. I have seen young people text messaging while at the same time riding the family's donkey cart. Never before has the entire world been so connected so quickly. Information is the single greatest asset of this era. In previous ages, We owned factories, cattle ranches, gold mines, oil wells, or skyscrapers to be rich. In the information age, information alone can make you very rich. You don't need tangible resources like land, gold, or oil. The young entrepreneurs who created MySpace and YouTube have proved that with just a few dollars, some information, and the leverage of technology, these 20 years olds have become billionaires. Likewise, poor or mistaken information is a liability. Poor information creates poor people. One of the reasons so many people are struggling financially is simply because they are obsolete, biased, misleading, or erroneous information powering their most powerful asset, their brain. Many people who are struggling are doing so because they are using industrial or agrarian information age information in the information age. Examples of industrial age information are ideas such as I need a good education to get a high paying job. An example of agrarian age information is land is the basis of all wealth. The four ages of humanity. There have been four economic ages of humanity. Number one, the hunter-gatherer age. During this period, nature provided the wealth. Tribes followed herds or searched for food. If you knew how to hunt and gather, you survived. If you didn't, you died. The tribe was social security. Socio-economically, everyone was even. The chief didn't have a higher standard of living than the rest of the tribe. He may have eaten first and had more wives, but basically fire was fire and cave was a cave. In terms of money, there was only one class of people. Everyone was poor. The agrarian age. Once human learned how to plant seeds and domestic animals, land became the wealth. Kings and queens owned the land, and everyone else worked on the land and paid a tax to the royals. That is why real estate, strictly translated, means a royal state. With the advent of domesticated animals, the royals rode horses and peasants walked. That is why the word peasant is a derivative of many words, broadly meaning on the land and on foot. Peasants owned nothing. Socioeconomically, there are two groups, the rich and the peasants. The industrial age. In 1492, Christopher Columbus and other explorers went in search of trade routes, land, and resources. To me, that's when the industrial age really began. In the industrial age, resources such as oil, copper, tin, and rubber were wealth. During this era, the value of real estate changed. In the agrarian age, land had to be fertile and able to grow crops or raise animals. In the industrial age, non-agricultural land became more valuable. For example, Henry Ford built his auto plant in Detroit because he could buy large tracts of rocky, unfertile, and non-agricultural land for a great price. Today, industrial use land has a higher value than agricultural land. Socioeconomically, a new class emerged, the middle class. There were now three groups of people: the rich, the middle class, and the poor. The information age. This age officially started with the invention of digital computers. In the information age, information leveraged by technology is wealth, and very inexpensive and abundant resources such as silicon produce the wealth. In other words, the price of getting rich has gone down. For the very first time in the history, wealth is available, affordable, and abundant for everyone. Regardless of where he or she lives, socioeconomically, there are now four groups of people: the poor, the middle class, the rich, and the super rich. Bill Gates is the most obvious example of the information age super rich. The super rich. Today, the super rich can derive their wealth from any era. It is possible to be a super rich hunter gatherer, as Maori from New Zealand are from fishing rights. You can also be a super rich rancher or farmer from the agrarian age and be a super rich automaker from the industrial age. As already mentioned, there are super rich 20-year-old billionaires of the information age. Young people who became super rich with the inexpensive and abundant resources of technology, information, and their ideas. The common bound among all these is that information enables the coordination of resources as a much quicker and higher level than ever before. It is this coordination that creates the super rich. The gap. At the same time, there are people who are perishing because of obsolete or inadequate information. There are indigenous tribes that are who are being wiped out, or as their forests are taken away. There are farmers going broke and automakers laying off thousands of workers. Once prosperous record store chains are now being wiped out by downloaded music. In America, the richest country in the world, we have millions of people who are deeply in debt, clinging to the last strands of job security and wondering how they will afford an education for their kids and a retirement for themselves. Millions struggle in this rich country because they continue to operate with hunter-gatherer, agrarian or industrial age ideas. The widening gap between the super rich and everyone else is made by information. The good news is that information is abundant and free. Today it's relatively easy for a person, even the very poor or the young, to go from nothing to super rich without much money. To be rich today, you do not have to be conquistador, sailing to foreign lands or robbing the indigenous people of their resources. You do not need to raise millions of dollars in the stock market to build a car factory or employ thousands of workers. Today, information and a very inexpensive computer can transport you from poor to super rich while you are sitting at home. All it takes is the right information. Information overload. So the good news is that information is abundant and free. The bad news is that information is abundant and free. The irony of the information is that there is too much of it. Today, people complain about information overload. At any given moment, a person can be watching TV, surfing the internet, and talking on the phone while driving past digital billboards. In previous ages, no one complained about too much land or oil. Yet in the information age, people complain about having too much information and being overloaded with the very asset that could make them super rich. Military intelligence. In Vietnam, I learned to respect the power of information. I became acutely aware of information's power to kill as well as to save lives. Using military intelligence to kill no longer makes sense to me. Today, I prefer to use information to give life, not take it. As an information officer, I was also faced with information overload. While at war, the amount of information we had to process was staggering. Very quickly, we had to learn how to sort, categorize, discard, and process tremendous amount of information from multiple and varied sources. If we didn't, we or other could die. Classifying information. To handle information overload, the military puts a great amount of effort into classifying information. Without classification, all information is equal and virtually worthless. As an information officer in Vietnam, I learned to classify information according to a set of characteristics. Number one, time. In war and in business, information can be useful one minute and obsolete the other. War is fluid, always moving. So is business and investing. Enemy troops can be one place today and 100 miles away tomorrow. In business, a business advantage can be priceless today and worthless tomorrow. Number two, credibility. We have to know who the information came from. Were our sources credible and reliable? Unfortunately, in the world of money, most people get their financial information from people they work with or people who are struggling for money as well. They may be good, honest people, but they are not credible or reliable sources of financial information. Classification. In the military, I learned to sort information into categories. For example, top secret information was only available to those with top secret clearances. In the world of business and investing, top secret or classified information is known as insider information. When the average investor hears the term, he or she thinks of illegal information, and sometimes it is. Insider information is illegal when a person receives information from someone inside a public company and use it to buy or sell that company shares. In reality, all information is inside information. A more important question is, how far from the inside are you? By the time a person hears the top as here's a hot tip about a company's new product or news that a company is in trouble. People or the inside and close to the inside have already traded on that information. The battle has already been won and the average investor has lost. Let me make it clear that I do not encourage or condone illegal insider trading on information. The distinction I want to make is about the importance of being on the inside and getting close to the information. One of the reasons I love being an entrepreneur and a real estate investor is because I am a legal insider who can trade an inside information. Since I am not a public company, I can also freely tell my friends that I know and how I am investing. In the stock market, professionals know that amateurs trade on ancient history. That is how professionals make their money. They make money from amateurs. Example is Mr. Average, an investor who gets up, reads the newspaper over a cup of coffee and notices a new release of his favorite public company. He then calls his broker or goes online to make his trade. Even though the information may only be a few hours old, Mr. Average is already in a losing position. Mr. Average is late to the party because he was never invited. He is not on the insider, he is an outsider. One of the main reasons Rich Dad encouraged me to develop my financial intelligence is that I could have access to inside information. The closer to the inside your information, the richer you become. Number 4, relative information. Watching battlefield information change day by day. We as information officers were able to interpret past and present information to forecast future information. For example, if we knew that enemy troops were in a position on Tuesday, another position on Wednesday, another position on Thursday, we could begin to predict where they are going and what their objective might be. In other words, we had to know how information related to other information. In the world of business and investing, this past, present and future information gathering is known as watching the trends. Number 5, deceptive information. In war, the enemy would often try to deceive us by sending the deceptive information. They occasionally did this by using diversionary tactics. For example, they might move a large number of troops and equipment, making a lot of noise and dust just to distract us from their real motives and objectives. Or they allowed us to capture one of their troops who provided erroneous information, or they used a spy someone we thought was on our side to provide us with inaccurate information. The pump and dump. Business and investing are rampant with deceptive information. An entrepreneur and investor must be constantly vigilant and on guard against deceptive information. For example, many times a financial expert will tell you something and then do the opposite. This person may go on television and say he is bullish on the stock and is buying it. And this bit of information causes other people to buy the stock, driving the stock price up. Once the price is up, the person who recommended the stock sells and takes a huge profit. This is known as pump and dump. The sleight of hand. Another form of deception is known as the sleight of hand, a technique named after a magic trick. When a magician taps on his top hat, your eyes are drawn to the hat and away from what he is doing with his other hand behind his back. In business, consumers are often deceived the same way. For example, a box of cereal may boldly say low fat. A consumer worried about gaining weight thinks that it is a good cereal. Upon closer inception of the first print, however, you find that the cereal is low in fat but excessively high in sugar. In investing, a mutual fund may advertise highest returns of all funds. What the highlight fails to state is that none of the other funds made any money and neither did this fund. It's like saying I caught the biggest minnow. Classifying information to become richer. There are a number of lessons I learned in the military about classifying information that are applicable to business. Lesson 1, facts versus opinions. The key to military intelligence is to know the difference between facts and opinions. The same is true for financial intelligence. One of the reasons so many people think investing is risky is because they do not know the difference between facts and opinions. A few examples of opinions are: when someone says the shares of a company are going to go up, it's an opinion because it's about a future event. When someone says a person's net worth is in $1,000,000, is an opinion because most valuations are opinions. If a person says he's very successful, it's an opinion because the definition of success is relative. Lesson number 2: insane solutions. An insane solution occurs when a person uses information that is an opinion as a fact. In war, this can kill you. In business, it can ruin you. For example, question: why did you buy that house when you knew you couldn't afford it? Answer: I bought it because my broker said it was going to go up in the value. I thought that I could buy the house, live in it, and then sell it for the profit, which would solve my money problems. Question: why did you marry him even after you knew he was a womanizing lazy bum? Well, he was so cute. I was afraid I would lose him. I did not want anyone else to steal him from me. So even though I knew he fooled around and did not like to work, I thought that after we got married and had kids, I could change him. Question: why did you stay at a job you hated for so many years? I thought I might get promoted. Why did you invest in those mutual funds? Answer: because my supervisor told me to. She said it was a good investment. Lesson number 3: risky actions. In war, if you didn't verify information and acted on it blindly, you risked death. A risky investor invests based on opinions. Unfortunately, this describes most investors. Since most investors invest for capital gains, their investment decision is based upon opinions about the future. Many investors invest in mutual funds based upon the opinions that the stock market goes up 8% to 10% per year. If the opinion is wrong, they lose. Small investors know the difference between facts and opinions. Generally, a person who invests for capital gain is investing on an opinion. A cash flow investor invests for facts. If possible, a smart investor will invest using both opinions and facts and invest for both cash flow and capital gains. If you are investing in stocks, mutual funds, real estate, or business, ask yourself if the information you are basing your decision is on fact or opinion. Lesson number 4: control over the asset. One important bit of information I want is how much control I have. In the previous chapter on financial IQ number 4, leveraging your money, I stated that it was important to invest with control before leverage. If I do not have control, I do not use much leverage. I control my asset value by controlling my rents. My asset value is not based upon a market appraisal, which is an opinion 99% of the time. The reason bankers often ask for a large down payment on a property is simply because they do not trust the appraised value. Of course, this practice went out the window when credit became cheap. With easy credit and cheap money, housing price skyrocketed as fools rushed in after fool's gold. More buyers meant prices went up. As prices went up, real estate appraisals went up. As appraisals went up, families felt rich because they thought their home went up in value. Many took out home equity loans based upon their new appraised valuation. They bought new cars, vacation homes, took cruises, and went shopping. Then a rip appeared in the balloon, a tiny tear known as the problem with subprime mortgages. As the tiny tear keeps ripping, the balloon starts floating back to earth. This is the problem with using an opinion, capital gains, rather than a fact, cash flow, as the basis of valuation. This is true not only for real estate but also for all asset classes. That is why when seeking financial information, I need to know if the information is a fact or an opinion. Financial insanity is caused when opinions are mistaken for facts. Fools rush in. There are two songs worth humming to yourself the next time you are about to make an investment decision. Fool Russian by Johnny Merker and Rue Bloom and The Gambler by Dawn and sung by Kenny Roger. The line I love from The Gambler is, "You never count your money when you are sitting at the table." When someone says, "My net worth is," "My home is appraised at," I know I'm talking to a gambler, a person counting his or her money while sitting while sitting at the table. My rich dad said, "The reason you do not count your money while you are sitting at the table is because as long as you are at the table, your money doesn't belong to you. The moment you step away from the table, the money in your pocket is your money and you can count it." Today, millions of workers with retirement accounts are counting their money while sitting at the table. Since some investors invest in paper asset and for capital gains, most investors without control and invest upon the hope that opinions become facts. That is very risky. This doesn't mean a smart investor only invests upon the facts. A smart investor is a person who invests with both opinions and facts. A smart investor knows that facts and opinions can be valuable bits of information. Simply said, a fact is something that is proved by verification of physical proof. An opinion is something that may or may not be based upon a fact. In other words, an opinion might be a fact, but it remains an opinion until verified. As my good friend and business partner Ken McElroy said, "Trust but verify." Lesson number 5. What are the rules? Rules and laws are very important types of information. Many people get into trouble simply because they do not know the rules, ignore the rules, or break the rules. Personally, I never liked rules. In Vietnam, I liked them even less. One of the things I hated was that we fought according to one set of rules and the enemy fought according to another. One rule I found ridiculous in war was the rule that we could not pursue the enemy across borders. The enemy would fight close to the border and then escape across it for safety. There were many times we had to break off a fight because the VC crossed back into Laos. Another rule I did not like was that I had to wear a uniform but the enemy did not. One of the hardest things about fighting was not having the information on who was an enemy and who was not. A uniform would provide that information. Rules increase asset value. It was my rich dad who changed my attitude towards rules. He said, "If there are no rules, there is no asset." Explaining further, he said, in a neighborhood where the rules are broken, crime is high and property values go down. As he also said, if you play sports and there is no referee to enforce the rules, the game turns into chaos. If you drive on the highway and police did not enforce the rules, people die. This is why rules are important. Rules can make a person very rich or very poor. This is why information on rules is so important. Not too long ago, the executives of Enron broke the rules. The company disappeared. Workers lost their jobs and investors lost their money. In the world of investing, different assets have different rules. One reason I do not like mutual funds is because I do not like the rules. I have no control. I prefer the rules of real estate, which allow me to make more money and legally pay less in taxes. If I applied the rules of real estate to mutual funds, I would go to jail. For people who want to be rich, having good accountants and lawyers is important. Today there are so many laws, rules and regulations that it is impossible for any one person to know or understand them all. While hiring an attorney or accountant may seem expensive, the pain they can save and money they can make for you can be much greater than the fees you pay them. Remember two things. Rules provide a valuable source of information about how the game of money is played, and without rules, assets decline. Lesson number 6. trends. A trend is developed when an investor takes information from a set of facts and then forms an opinion. Let me tell you a story that had a major impact on my life. In late 1972, the North Vietnamese Army (NVA) crossed the demilitarized zone (DMZ), and NVA was on its way to take Saigon, known today as Ho Chi Minh City. The first major city south of the DMZ was Quang Tri. We knew that if we did not stop them there, the war was lost. As we began to lose the Battle of Quang Tri, I noticed some different message traffic. One bit of information was that the South Vietnamese people were trading their currency, the Vietnamese piastre, for gold leaf. I thought this piece of obscure information was interesting. As stated throughout this book, the US dollar stopped being money and become a currency in 1971. In 1973, while in Vietnam, I directly observed the change in rules of money via the information received about the panic in the South Vietnamese people's lives. They knew that war was lost and they were on the losing side. In 1971, gold was pegged at $35 an ounce. In 1973, I watched its price go up past $80 an ounce. As the North Vietnamese began their march south, fear was approaching a panic level. The rich who sided with the US were getting ready to run. Instead of clinging to the piastre or US dollars, they were buying all the gold they could get their hands on. One intelligence report I received stated confidence lost, people ready to flee, trading dollars and piastres for gold. Sitting in the top secret room, I realized that people wanted gold. I assumed they knew gold would buy them passage to another country. I could feel their anguish. They knew that gold could save their lives. I knew the facts. The US was losing the war. The enemy was taking ground. Internationally, the dollar was dropping and gold was going up in price. From the intelligence report, I knew the South Vietnamese people were panicking and dumping their currency to buy gold. To me, this trend was an investment opportunity. I used this to form an opinion. A few days later, a friend and I flew north, just behind enemy lines, hoping to buy some gold. Our opinion was the Vietnamese gold miners would be desperate to sell to us their gold since the NVA had just overrun their village. Our opinion was the miners would jump at the opportunity to take our US dollars. Our opinion was we would be in a good position to buy gold at a discount. Because of our opinion based upon a few facts, we were willing to break a few rules and risk our lives just to make a few dollars. Instead of making a killing, I was nearly killed. Instead of buying gold at a discount, I learned a valuable lesson about gold and currencies. Today, I found out that the price of gold nearly was the same price all over the world. On that day, the price was about $82 an ounce. I found out that regardless of whether I was buying gold in US territory or NVA territory, its price was the same. Standing behind enemy lines hoping to buy gold at a lower price is a perfect example of becoming smart by being stupid. I was getting an MBA in international finance by standing in front of the Bamboo Hut sales office for the mine, arguing with a red-toothed old woman stained with from chewing betel nuts. Although I did not ask, I sincerely doubt if this woman was a Harvard graduate. I doubt if she had any formal education at all. But she was a great teacher. Even though she did not seem to be well educated or dressed for success, she knew her stuff. When it came to the value and price of gold, she was financially intelligent and tough as nails. She was not going to let a couple of young American pilots sweet talk her out lot of her gold with the rapidly declining US dollars. To this day, I vividly remember standing in front of her arguing for a $5 discount. I was willing to pay $77, not the world price of $82. Instead of taking our money, she was just shaking her head and chewing on her betel nuts. She knew the price. She knew the local and geopolitical economic forces in the world. She was informed. She was turned in. She was cool, and she was in no hurry to sell her gold. She knew the trend was on her side and not on ours, and that there were people far more desperate for her gold than two pilots trying to make a few bucks. Once it dawned on me that she was not going to budge, I said silently to myself, I am dead. Today I am going to die standing behind enemy lines asking for a $5 discount. No one will find us. No one will ever know that what happened to us. We will be missing in action, and we weren't away in any action. I won't be killed for a noble cause. I will be killed trying to shave a few dollars off the price of an international commodity. I will die because I am cheap and stupid. If I stand here any longer, I will be shot in the back arguing with this woman for a discount. I am so stupid that I deserve to die. The trend is your friend. There were three lessons I learned that day. One was the power of global markets. A global market means that the price is the same all over the world. Gold is priced in international markets. Real estate is priced in a local market. The old woman won because she had information from both the global and local markets. She won because she had better information and higher intelligence. Today I understand that I need to know what information is important both locally and globally. Today I love real estate because it is an asset more dependent on local information than on global information. With real estate, I can be the expert in my small area. With local information, I can be smarter than the big institutional investors in New York, London, Hong Kong, or Tokyo. Just as David beat a small investor with superior information and intelligence can beat the giant. The second lesson I learned that day was the power of trends. If I had better understood trends and the price of gold, I would have made a lot of money without risking my life behind enemy lines. I did not need to go behind enemy lines to invest. I did not need to ask for a discount. If I had to do was invest with the trend. I could have gone to a coin shop in any town in the world and bought gold for the same price. By 1979, the trend had carried gold to nearly $800 an ounce. I did not have to risk my life. If I had trusted the trend, I would have made a lot of money. I did not need a discount to make money. The third and most valuable lesson that day was that information is just information. Intelligence is the ability to take information and make it meaningful. The old woman with red teeth had the same information I had, yet her intelligence proved her understanding and meaning I did not have. She was a seasoned player. She knew the game. I was the new kid, a new player in an ancient game. When the markets crashed and people panicked on August 9, 2007, I thought of that old woman. The first thing I did was check the trends. Instead of joining the crowd and going into panic mode, I simply kept my fear in check and refocused on the trends in the market, not on its ups and downs. I re-verified the facts and formed my own opinion about the future. I was looking for information on the actions taken by the central banks. Once again, they were printing more funny money rather than solving the problem. When I learned the facts that international central banks were injecting cash into the crashing markets, I knew my opinion was that the purchasing power of the dollar would continue to trend down was still sound. Today, instead of diversifying, I prefer to focus on a few small assets. Notice a trend and invest with the trend. Since I know a trend can reverse and change direction, I do not blindly invest for the long term. The information age is about change and I need to be flexible, not a robot. Some of the trends I am investing in today are trends in oil. As you know, the more China, India and Eastern Europe become westernized, the more the demand of oil goes up. Even with the rush to find alternative sources of power, oil will continue to be primary source of power for years to come. As much as I do not like the environmental damage oil causes, the harsh reality is we all use it, even the most devoted environmentalist. I believe the long term trend for the price of oil is up, possibly as high as $200 a barrel in the near future. This high price will have serious repercussions upon the world's economy, which will later lead to other trends worth following as alternative energy technologies such as solar power more makes advances. Trends in silver. I believe silver is the best investment in 2007. I believe it is the better investment than oil. There are two reasons I say this. The first reason is that because silver is consumable industrial metal. This means it's used up. Silver is the metal of choice for electronics. It is used in computers, cell phones, television sets and other gadgets. It is estimated that 95% of all silver is already consumed. It is becoming scarcer. Gold is different. It is estimated that 95% of all gold ever found is still around. Instead of being consumed as silver is, gold is hoarded. In many ways, this makes silver more valuable than gold. The second reason is because silver is also a precious metal, a form of money. As the dollar drops in purchasing power, more people will look for anything that represents real money or at least holds its value. As I write, silver is very cheap when compared to gold. It is approximately $13 an ounce, while gold is approximately $600 an ounce. Historically, gold has been only 14 times the price of silver, which means that if silver was $10 an ounce, gold would be trading at $140 an ounce. At today's price, gold and silver both are trading at a differential of 50. To me, based on historical trends and the fact that silver is a consumable metal, it has a greater opportunity to go up in price. About a year ago, many stock exchanges made silver exchange traded funds ETFs available for the investor who did not want to hoard silver coins and bars or invest in silver mining stock. The silver ETF made it easier for investors to invest in silver. A silver ETF is like the old US money, a price of paper backed by silver known as a silver certificate. The difference is an ETF can go up and down with the fluctuations in the world price of silver. I believe the addition of the silver ETF means the world is getting ready to start hoarding more and more silver as the purchasing power of the world currencies continues to go down. That silver is a consumable and precious metal makes it the investment opportunity of the decade. The reports are that there is less than 300 million ounces of silver left on earth. This means that the world may run out of it by the year 2020. Because of this, a few silver bugs feel that the silver will become as expensive as gold in a few years. I do not think it will go that high yet. Due to the supply demand trends, I believe silver is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Today it's a cheap, low risk investment anyone in the western world can afford. That is why I watch the trends and I purchase silver anytime the silver markets drop in price. Of course I could be wrong, so it is best to do your own research and find your or information before investing in this trend. Trends in housing. One of the reasons for the high price of commodities is that the world needs and wants more housing. For example, the demand of concrete in China would cause a shortage of concrete in the US, which caused the price of concrete to skyrocket. One of the reasons I love investing in an apartment house is that rich or poor people will pay for a roof over their head. In America, population is expected to grow from 300 million to be over 400 million in the next 2 decades, as I believe the price of housing will continue to trend up. As real estate becomes more expensive and difficult to afford, and as wages come down, I believe these trends will cause more people to be renters. One of the reasons Kim and I did not panic during the August 9, 2007 crash is because we went out real estate for cash flow. We do not sell real estate. People who invest for capital gains are people who buy to sell real estate. When the subprime mortgages market collapsed, sellers panicked. People who invested for cash flow, those who rent property to others, didn't panic. In fact, they saw opportunity. In down markets, there are more renters than buyers, so a cash flow is generally good for landlords, but not sellers. The old woman chewing on betel nuts and selling gold knew that panic was going to make her rich. The trend was her friend. People who rent their property know that the trend is their friend. For those who sell property and are counting on their property to appreciate in value, the short-term trends may work against them. Instead of prices going up, they will probably come down or remain flat. The boom is over for sellers and just beginning for landlords. Democracy is destiny. A very valuable source of information is demographics. As the saying goes, demography is destiny. In other words, just watch people as I did in Vietnam, and you will know which way to invest. Once I knew that when people panic, they buy commodities with their currency, I had very valuable information for basing my opinions on trends. As gold went below $400 an ounce, I started to buy a little and began buying a lot when it hit $275 an ounce. Then the price began to head back up. In other words, I followed the trend down and bought a lot once the trend reversed. One of the reasons I like silver and gold is because there is always a market for it. It is relatively liquid. If I need cash, I would get cash pretty quickly. Less liquidity, more information. In real estate, the trend is a large percentage of baby boomers retiring in Arizona and Nevada. So I invest in those states. Due to the loss of jobs in Detroit, people are moving out of Detroit, which is pushing housing prices and rents down. It will be a number of years before that trend changes. Since real estate is much less liquid than gold, silver and stocks, I need to be much more cognizant of trends. After August 9, 2007, many house owners, flippers, and real estate developers with overpriced condos are finding it hard to become liquid again. Instead of selling to get out, all most can do is watch helplessly as the value of their real estate sinks into the sunset. The lesson is, the less liquid an investment, the more trend information you need. Many people bought high and now are faced with selling low. An astute investor knows how to follow trends in order to buy low and sell high. The financial bird of prey. Every time I see developers, construction cranes sitting on high rise condos, and I know the trend of the market is near. Whenever you see construction cranes, also known as birds of prey, sitting on the skyline, you know the boom is about to burst. It means that the cycle has peaked and generally there is nowhere to go but down. The next time you see more than two construction cranes on the skyline. Start selling any price of real estate you do not want. History and cycles. A final thought on trends is the importance of history and cycles. Having survived a number of ups and down markets, I have learned a lot from history. There is one historical financial trend I believe is worth watching. The trend is the 20-year cycle between stocks and commodities. As a person who sailed for an oil company and flew helicopters in search of gold, I became curious about why the price of commodities went up as stock prices came down. A few years ago, I came across a book written by one of my favorite financial authors, Jim Roger, entitled Hot Commodities. Roger discovered that stock prices went up for 20 years at the same time as commodity prices came down. For example, from 1960 to 1980, just as I was coming of age, commodity prices such as oil and gold were rising. In 1980, oil, gold, silver, and real estate prices came down rapidly as stock prices started climbing. Between 1980 and 2000, the stock market was the place to be, and oil and gold and silver were dogs. While the commodity price market was down, I was buying all the oil, gold, silver, and real estate I could. On schedule in 2000, at the height of the dot-com boom, share prices dropped and commodity prices came roaring back up. If history repeats, this means that commodities will come down in 2020 and stocks will be the market to be in again. Obviously, I do not have a crystal ball, but history does seem to repeat, and I am old enough to have seen some reruns. If you would like more information on how a world-class investor such as Jim Roger analyzes trends, I recommend you read Hot Commodities or any other book he has written. He's a brilliant investor and writer who is an astute observer of trends. Always remember, the trend is your friend. If you ignore the trend, the birds of prey will pick your bones clean. In conclusion, ultimately it is not the asset that makes you rich, information makes you rich or poor. For example, if I had bought gold at $800 an ounce in 1979, I would still be waiting to make my money back today. Given how much the dollar has dropped in purchasing power, that means I would have to wait until gold reaches $1,500 to break even today. The same is true for any asset. For example, in real estate, most investors lose money because of inadequate information and intelligence. That is why when someone asks me, is real estate a good investment? My reply is, I don't know. Are you a good investor? More businesses fail because of a lack of good business information and intelligence rather than from a lack of money. When people ask me, I have a great idea for a new business and I'm looking for some money, would you be interested in investing in my new company? My reply is, I don't know. How many successful businesses have you started? As it turned out, volunteering to fight in Vietnam was one of the smartest things I ever did. If I had not volunteered, I would never have met that old woman chewing betel nuts. That day, standing behind enemy lines, she taught me a very important lesson. She won because she knew the price of gold had nothing to do with the value of gold. By understanding the value, she knew why people are buying and why gold was important to them. That day I learned that it is not the asset that makes you rich, it is the information and intelligence that makes you rich. If I had lose money investing in gold, that is real money. I can lose money in anything. That day I vowed to become smarter because she taught me that it is the information and intelligence that makes you rich, not the gold.